Hello Pokemon fans! If you want to start playing the Pokemon TCG yourself, it's easier than ever to learn how to play. This beginner's guide will give you a quick crash course on how the game is played. Pokemon TCG is a strategic Pokemon battle experienced via collectible cards. Two players send their Pokemon cards out onto the field, power them up using energy cards, and support their team using trainer cards. Pokemon are represented by cards in this game. Each player can have up to 6 Pokemon in play at a time. Only the active Pokemon can attack, and the others waited out on the bench. Pokemon cards that are labeled as basic Pokemon can be put onto the field immediately. Evolution cards can be played on top of basic Pokemon to give them access to stronger attacks. Attacks are fueled by energy cards. In order to use an attack, a Pokemon must have the required amount and type of energy attached to it. Players can attach only 1 energy card per turn. The energy costs for attacks range from minimal to colossal. Usually the powerful attacks require a lot of energy. Trainer cards can assist in many ways, such as drawing cards, finding a specific Pokemon, or even manipulating energy cards. Each player must use a 60-card deck in the Pokemon TCG. Just like the Pokemon video games, both players take turns having their Pokemon launch attacks at each other. Every Pokemon has a certain amount of hit points, which represents how much damage you can take before being knocked out. When a Pokemon is knocked out, a Pokemon on the bench has to become the new active Pokemon to take its place in battle. The player that scores a knockout gets to draw a prize card. Drawing all of your prize cards is the most common way to win a game of Pokemon, but you can also win if your opponent has no Pokemon left in play, or if your opponent has no cards to draw at the beginning of his or her turn. We've only scratched the surface of the Pokemon TCG in this short video. You can play digitally for free by downloading the Pokemon TCG online, or you can attend local events to learn from other players and compete for prizes.
Hello and welcome back to the 2019 Pokemon Oceania International Championships. We are watching the trading card game for the Masters Division at the moment. My name is Ellis Longhurst and I am joined by Kyle Pukasukovic, and this is it. We are at round 9. This is the final round of day 1. This is the round that players need to win if they want any chance at making it to day 2.
It's hard to believe we're already on round 9. Felt like we just started not too long ago, but here we are. We've seen a lot of Zapdos and Electro Power played over the course of the day, and we'll see what kind of matchup we get for round number 9. But yeah, as you said, this is it. Some players have already advanced. We know players like Stefan Ivanov and Azul Garcia Griego, and several other players who are already at that 19 match point threshold have already locked up their position for day 2. But for the rest of the players, everybody's got less than 19 points. They got to fight in this last round to just fight to have a chance to play tomorrow.
And of course, also Zach Lesage, who we just saw on stream, has also progressed with his Blacephalon GX deck, which I think is possibly just the one non-Malamar or non-Lightning deck in the field left, I'd say. I mean,
feels like it.
They just feel like they're everywhere. I think you mentioned Zapdos, you mentioned, I think, Pikachu Zekrom, but special mention to Jirachi, who I think has appeared in almost every match. Possibly more so than Marshadow. We did expect a lot of Marshadow, but yeah, Jirachi seems to be the MVP of today, so... Yeah,
I should have kept count of how many times Stellar Wish has been used over the course of the day. We got to be at least over 100 at this point.
I'd say at least 100 in that last matchup, given the number of switches that Caleb was playing there. But yeah, players do need to get those 19 match points from this last round, and there are a lot of familiar faces in vying for those last day 2 positions, but there are also a lot of sort of newer players and newer faces, especially local players as well, who are doing really well, currently on records such as, I don't know, 6-2 and things like that, very close to making it to that day 2 position, perhaps for the first time. So that's really exciting for all of those players as well. And yeah, I'm really excited to see who we've got in the final round. Typically, we do show you players who have to win to make it to the next day. And so for them, it's sort of an all-or-nothing match, and it's typically very exciting. So I'm hoping we can find some players who are on that record as well. But yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah,
we want to show you a match that means something, where they're fighting for something. I mean, 3 match points for somebody who's already locked up. I mean, that's still a pretty significant deal. I mean, you still got to get those match points if you want to make the top 8. But you want to watch someone who's, winning in That's where all the drama is. We want to see who's going to make it to day 2, who's not going to make it, and hopefully we'll have a match lined up for you pretty soon. We are still waiting for the previous round to finish, so we're still waiting to get pairings for the next round, and in the meantime we can discuss a little bit what's going on in the tournament here, what we've seen so far, and maybe recap a little bit of today's events.
Yeah, I mean, there's something I just wanted to touch on quickly, and that is that we're now coming into round 9, which for players in the Oceania region, you know, we don't get the biggest regionals, we don't have the biggest numbers of players, so 9 rounds is a long time for us to play. So, you know, fatigue is possibly going to be a factor coming into these next few rounds.
Yeah.
You also have to look at the international players who came from across the world, different time zones. You know, some people are 12 hours out of what their time usually is. So, you know, you can forgive them for feeling a bit jet lagged and perhaps feeling a bit fatigued at this time when, you know, in their home country it might be 5 a.m. So, yeah, that's pretty challenging. So I'm interested to see if fatigue and sort of concentration becomes an issue in this last round. And you know how that might affect different players and sort of what strategies they use to stay awake as well, because that can be difficult sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I had a 15-hour flight to get here, and I'm like probably on the medium end for how brutal it can be to travel to Australia. So, yeah, jet lag is very real. It can certainly affect your play, and I mean, we'll probably see it over the course of the day. You can argue we've already seen the effects of jet lag, unfortunately, but yeah, Pokemon is a somewhat physical game. It doesn't seem like it all the time, but if you are physically tired, it affects you mentally as well, and sometimes your mind is working and then your body does different things. I've certainly been there before where it's like, all right, I got this game wrapped up, just put my energy on the wrong Pokemon and I have lost the game.
Yeah, sadly, you know, happens to everyone.
Yeah.
Something else we could also discuss is, you know, we've had a look around the venue, we've seen what decks have been played, and then also which decks haven't featured. So is there anything that sort of surprised you in terms of which decks you didn't see here?
I don't really know. I mean, I expected a lot of Lightning decks, and that is certainly what showed up. And then Malamar seems to be the second most popular thing. I would say it's a little surprising to see the lack of just the sheer number of Zoroark decks. We usually see Zoroark GX being the most popular deck, and it's really not, but the players who did decide to play it have had success. So I don't know if that's very surprising. I guess Blacephalon kind of falling off the map is a little bit surprising. It was one of the strongest decks with Lost Thunder, so seeing it fall off quite a bit. I mean, Zach is probably the only person in this event playing that deck, and he's still having success, but that deck has fallen off. The big thing transitioning from the previous metagame over to the new one with Team Up is we aren't seeing Stage 2 decks anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
We haven't seen the Gardevoir decks, the weird like Solgaleo and Swampert things that we've been seeing for the past few months, or like the Meganium decks where you're running all these different Stage 2 lines. Those have all but disappeared, and I think a lot of that is due to just Zapdos. Being able to Guzma out a basic Pokemon on the first turn with Zapdos, use Thunderous Assault, and get a quick knockout. A lot of those Stage 2 decks just can't keep up, whereas in the past, you could maybe get one turn before your basic started to get knockout. A lot of the decks were a little bit slower, but in this environment, even when you go first, like your opponent's first turn, they can hit for 80 damage, and it just makes it that much harder to rare candy into your Stage 2s.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have seen a, you know, Meganium with a Swampert and the Slaking deck. Like, yeah. I'm all about that kind of interesting rogue tech decks, but no, it's also interesting to see how the Malamar builds have evolved, I would say. I mean, Ultra Necrozma GX paired with Malamar has always been a thing, yep. But typically we saw the more popular variant was just with the Necrozma GX with Malamar, just running all Psychic, no sort of metal energy, and I guess you can attribute that to, well, firstly, having Pokemon with 240 hit points that you need to knock out, so it's a lot easier when you have a Pokemon that does a little bit more damage for each energy it discards. But I'd say also, would you say cards like Viridian Forest and Jirachi as well, just kind of improving the consistency of that deck and giving them a bit more options? I think previously it sort of fell to the wayside because sometimes you would miss that metal energy attachment, but now with Viridian Forest you can just find it. So yeah, I feel like that's been something interesting coming out of this tournament as well.
Yeah, it feels like the standout card has certainly been Jirachi. We've seen it in almost every deck at this point. We didn't see it in the Blacephalon deck. It doesn't really fit into there. But pretty much anything that can afford to put some escape words in their deck, they just love playing Jirachi. It just helps smooth out the deck so much. And that makes it even more surprising that Stage 2 decks have kind of gone away, because Jirachi helps those decks out as well, being able to grab rare candy with the Stellar Wish, but looks like it's just not worth playing Stage 2 Pokemon right now.
Sadly not, even though Gardevoir GX does, you know, hit Ultra Necrozma GX for a knockout, with for weakness, that is, sorry.
Yeah.
But we actually have the standings ready to show you guys, so we can update you going into the last round, you know, who's up there, who might have already progressed to Day 2. And looking at it is really interesting, you know, list of players. We have Preston Ellis on 701. I think it's, you know, pretty amazing that he's gone 8 rounds without having lost a match. That's 7 wins and 1 tie. And then we have Azul, who we have seen on stream already. You've got your North American International Champion, Stefan Ivanov, on 611. Zach Lesage, who we've also seen. Christian Hasbani is on 611, which means he will progress to Day 2. That's a player from Australia who's, you know, quite adept in handling a Malamar deck, so credit to him. And then we've got Henry Brand, Joshua Sparks, also Australian players who have really made their mark on this tournament and progressed to Day 2. Joshua Sparks, a little bit of a newer player relative to sort of how long the game's been going on, so credit to him. And then Daniel Altavilla as well, who's very well known internationally, doing well there as well. So we see a spread of players from different countries. I'd like to say it's a spread of different decks, but I do feel like it's going to be the 3 that we've sort of seen before. And most of those players we've sort of kept up with their journey on stream during this tournament.
Yeah, everybody listed on this page has already locked up a spot in Day 2, so we'll be seeing them tomorrow for sure. They have one more round to perhaps earn some more match points and improve their standing heading into the next day, but all of these players here, they will be heading to the second day. And yeah, the last player on the list, Bert Walters, another great player from Europe, who's had a lot of success recently at some regional championships and things like that. It's been a name that has popped up a lot recently.
Yeah, could this be his breakout tournament, would you say?
Could be.
One of those, you know, top 8 in internationals, nothing to scoff at, so it could be quite amazing.
Indeed.
And as you said, the records do carry over into Day 2 as well. So for people like Preston Ellis on 7-0 and 1, you know, it's worth actually still playing, worth trying to get that 8th win. You don't actually have to tie with your opponent and decide to sort of go home early. You could say, I want to put myself in a really great position for tomorrow to make top 8, and, you know, not just settle on 702 if you don't have to.
Yeah, it depends on how much you value sleep.
Oh, well, we were just talking about jet lag,
yeah.
weren't we?
I've certainly been there before where Preston is, and it's like, yeah, I could play the next one, but I've got like 2 hours of sleep last night, so I would like to intentional draw and go to bed.
I mean, yeah, we do have 5 rounds tomorrow as well to play, and it does start pretty early, so I think the first round is 9:30 in the morning, although we'll have to check the schedule for that one. But yeah, 5 more rounds to play tomorrow to try to lock in that top 8 position, and that's what everyone wants. So yeah, rest, some food, good sleep.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
Yeah, but right now first place has 22 match points, which is only 3 points ahead of 12th place as we see there.
Yeah.
So not much separation between the top players. It's still anybody's game. This is a bit of a smaller international compared to other events. We have about 300-ish players. So there's, I don't know, it feels like less people will certainly make it to Day 2. But that means there's probably going to be less separation between first and 32nd or however many people get through, and it's going to be very tight margins. You know, 1 win or loss tomorrow can really make the difference between making top 8 and not.
Yeah, I hope Preston Ellis is listening and he does not sitting there for the ID, because I just told him he needs to get that win this round. But yeah, it does kind of mean that tomorrow, although the points do carry over, it means that those 5 rounds, it's sort of like a new tournament because everyone's on very similar points. So, you know, they still have to bring their A game tomorrow and really show up and try to make that top 8 position.
Definitely. Hopefully we'll get a great matchup here in the final round. We got 2 players who have really everything on the line. Their entire tournament is at stake.
Oh, no pressure. No
win
pressure
or go
to
home,
them, right? Yeah.
This is it's nerve-wracking, but this is what you come for, right? You got the pressure on. You're playing for high stakes.
Yeah,
give yourself a chance to be in the running still for the Oceania International Champion.
Yeah, and only the 3rd one ever.
Yeah.
And hopefully the first outside of Europe as well for some people, because it has previously been won by Pedro Torres and Tord Reckler, both from Europe. So it'd be interesting if we can crown someone from a different region. Would be nice. But we have the Masters division, but we also have the Senior division, and we also have the Junior division that are happening simultaneously. Well, they're actually happening tomorrow. Yeah. So they're simultaneous with tomorrow's event.
Yeah.
And so
all the championships will be on Sunday.
Yeah, and all the finals will be on Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's those players will be playing tomorrow, and we'll be able to see them in the finals. And see what they bring, whether they're also on the Lightning hype train or if they've got something a little different to play as well. I know a lot of junior players, especially, are really into Blacephalon GX. So it'll be interesting to see if they've sort of carried that over and they've been inspired by Zach Lesage and they're going to play that. But yeah, I mean, tomorrow, people still have to bring their A games, still have to play.
And it's just like Zach said, you just burst GX, and then you play an energy, and you attack, and then you B-string, and then you just keep attacking.
Yeah, it's so easy, right? That's the best coaching advice you could give, I think. It's just, take prizes. It's fine. Don't worry about what you draw.
Yeah, I mean, just take all your prizes, you win. Very simple.
Yeah, well, I think if that was the way that the game was always played, people would just be playing Pikachu and Zekrom GX, because that takes a lot of prize cards, that card.
True, yes.
So we do have the two players. They have sat down, but we're just re-sleeving some of the decks. These players, probably pretty nervous, pretty anxious. What kind of things would they be doing to ease their nerves, do you think?
I mean, at this point, you've played 8 rounds. All you can do is really take a deep breath, maybe drink some water, try to calm yourself as best you can.
Stick to the game plan.
Yeah. Being nervous and anxious is not a bad thing. I mean, that just means you're invested. There's a lot on the line. You really care about it. And it's just about keeping those emotions in check as much as you can. Sometimes it can get the best of you, but if you can stay calm, just execute your game plan. This is where practicing a lot really helps, because you've gone through these matchups over and over, and it becomes more natural. A lot of the time you can psych yourself out in these situations and feel like, oh, there's so much pressure, I can't screw up, especially when you're on camera and you have a bunch of people watching you. But a lot of the times players are nervous beforehand, but then they sit down and start playing, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm still just playing Pokemon.
Yeah, get into the rhythm of it. You see your cards, you do your usual strategies. If you're a Malamar, you stick to the script of Malamar, which is just put down Inkays. If you're Blacephalon, you just attack. So that's it's pretty easy, right?
Yeah. If you're a Zapdos deck, you use Jirachi like 27 times and then
in
play
one turn.
a Guzma. Yeah.
Use up all your switches and escape ropes. But yeah, I mean, I'm personally hoping not to see a Lightning deck ever again.
I got bad news for you.
Oh no!
I'm sure we're going to see plenty more.
It was very interesting at the beginning of the day, because we had a look around the floor to see what people were playing, and it just seemed like everyone was playing Malamar, and then somehow on stream it's just been Pikachu, Zekrom, and Zapdos, Jirachi. So it kind of, I guess that's an indication of good sort of metagaming, that these better players really decided to play the Zapdos, Jirachi, and it's really worked out for them. And I think that's a big part of the tournament. You need to be able to select the best deck before you even sort of arrive at the tournament.
Yeah.
What works for you and what might counter your opponents as well.
Yeah, it's been interesting to me to watch, because cards come out in Japan before they come out everywhere else, and we get to see a little bit of a preview of how the metagame is based on results from Japanese tournaments, and I feel like that actually causes the international metagame to advance a little faster than it would. I mean, we get to see the results from Japan, you go, oh, the Zapdos Jirachi deck is winning a lot, Pikachu and Zekrom winning a lot. Whereas people might not have come to those conclusions if they only had a few weeks to test out these decks. But because we've seen all those results, you have people showing up with Absol in their deck because they're like, oh, Jirachi's really good. Whereas if we didn't have those prior results, people would have showed up and been like, oh, wow, that Jirachi card's a lot better than I thought it was. But now people already know it's good. People are already teching for it with Absol and Alolan Muck and things like that. So it's interesting to me to see how quickly the metagame develops, even though this is the first time we have these cards legal in a standard format.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really developed further than those Japanese results, actually. I think we've got quite similar to the metagame that they had. Pikachu and Zekrom, as you said, doing very well. The only thing is that surprisingly, there were fewer Zoroarks and Lycanrocs running around than you'd kind of expect. I think also one deck that really fell by the wayside, Rayquaza GX, seemed to kind of have a little resurgence prior to, in some of the Japanese results and in some of the results that came out of Korea as well. There seemed to be a couple of Rayquaza GXs running around, but it seems like they didn't really show up to this tournament.
Yeah, I've seen like one Rayquaza GX in Pikachu and Zekrom decks, so you can Stormy Winds and energy switch the energy to your Pikachu and Zekrom, but otherwise the full-blown like Turbo Rayquaza deck, now that you have the Tapu Koko Prism Star and the Shaman Prism Star, both excellent in that deck.
Seems to be great, right? I don't know what happened. But the players have now set up. They're ready to start playing, so we can throw over to them.
All right.
And we can see what this matchup's all about. So it's one player we've already seen this week, actually back in the first round, I think. Yeah, it's Brent Tonneson on the left from Australia. And we've got Joey Ho on the right. And these are two players that face off all the time. This is a common finals match in an Oceania Regionals. It's basically like we're back in, I don't know, Brisbane Regional Championships right now. They're probably thinking back to that. But Brent, we already know that he's heavily invested in playing a Malamar deck. Joey, on the other hand, often comes to the table with something quite interesting. He's been known to play things like Greninja GX builds, but I'm seeing a Mimikyu and I'm seeing a Mysterious Treasure, and that kind of implies to me that we're seeing just a Malamar, double Malamar sort of matchup going on here.
Yeah, we're going to end the day the same way we started, with two Malamar decks facing off. And, well, if this doesn't sum up the day right here, both players starting off with Jirachi.
No, I think this is just a quad Jirachi mirror. That's what it's starting to feel like at the moment. But
slap fight. Who's going to slap the most?
They do run Metal Energy.
Oh,
so
yeah, they can.
You never know what can happen. But as we've been talking about with Malamar for quite a while, there's sort of a script that you stick to, and that is put down lots of Inkay to start with, and then, you know, possibly attack with Giratina if you can. It seems to be the advice that I received from Brent yesterday about this mirror match and how it was a very intense skill mirror match. So we'll have to see who can draw better, but also who has the better skill.
Indeed. Yeah, looking at the deck list, they're fairly similar. I do see one difference that really stands out to me, and that is one Registeel in Joey's deck from that Celestial Storm expansion. It's got, I believe, the Exoskeleton ability, and it's got a resistance to Psychic type, so it's actually pretty resilient against opposing Giratina. So that could be kind of a mirror breaker where, you know, you're typically trading Giratina back and forth, but Registeel can kind of throw a wrench in things and be very difficult to knock out.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting because I think Registeel, forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's 60 damage plus 60 more if the opponent has an ability.
Yeah.
So that's not quite a knockout on a Giratina, but it is a knockout on Giratina if you combine it with something like Distortion Door, which is your own Giratina's ability. So that could set up some interesting plays where multiple Pokemon are knocked out in one turn that can kind of swing the matchup that way, instead of just having to go into Giratina facing off against Giratina as most people expect. But we see Joey here, he's put down a Ditto, he's put down an Inkay, and he's just using that Stellar Wish ability to select a trainer card from the top 5. Looks like there's a few he can choose from as well.
Yeah, he's got Ultra Ball he can pick from, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, and Registeel can simply, Guzma out a Malamar and knock it out. It's got plenty of options. It's a strange tech card I would never have expected to see in this kind of a deck, but hey, sometimes if you can figure out the metagame, you can find some weird cards that are typically not very good, but have very specific and narrow uses that can really swing a matchup. It reminds me of that when that Chimecho came out of nowhere with the Bell of Silence and really ruined a lot of the mirror matches and set up your match against the Zoroark Lycanroc deck. Just weird cards sometimes that look completely unplayable come out of nowhere in specific metagames, and you're just like, oh yeah, I win this matchup now because of this weird common that nobody else has ever played.
Chimecho is a card that I actually love so much. I think it's such a great card, but something we haven't seen at all this weekend. Yeah. And I think it sort of fulfills the slot that Jirachi fills. So if you have Jirachi, you can't really afford to have a bench space with Chimecho on it. So I think that's one reason among many that people haven't played Chimecho this weekend, to be honest.
Yeah, it's also not very good against Zapdos.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's definitely one of the other reasons.
So it looks like Joey got a decent start. He got an Inkay down and the Ditto Prism Star, which can represent a second Malamar. So about as good of a start as you can hope for. You know, he did not get any energy in his discard pile or an energy attachment on a Giratina or anything like that, but still in a decent spot. But Brent starting off extremely well. Going to go ahead, Mysterious Treasure, discarding a Psychic Energy, and actually go right for the Ultra Necrozma GX.
Yeah, very interesting play. You'd think in this matchup you'd want to be avoiding putting down GX Pokemon just so your opponent can't take 2 prizes when you can only take 1. But clearly Brent has a plan. He has a strategy going that we are not yet privy to, but will be. And I'm sure he has further follow-up to find Inkays and other Pokemon in that sense.
I'm going to guess it involves Photon Geyser. That's his plan.
It's a pretty good attack.
Yeah.
But has to Viridian Forest away a Metal Energy, which is really difficult when the deck runs so few of them.
Yeah, he actually just discards it with Viridian Forest so he can Lily for additional cards. Doesn't even search for another energy card, and looks like he's gotten at least one Ultra Ball, so he'll be able to get one Inkay down, but would have loved to get 2 or maybe 3 down.
Yeah, definitely not the best start. It's not typically what Malamar's looking for. They typically don't play the Professor Elms. They do want to try to draw into it with a plethora of Nest Balls and Ultra Balls, Lily as well, just to draw cards. But yeah, sadly, only finds 1.
Yeah, although fortunately he did go for the Ultra Necrozma straight away, so even if he gets 0 Malamar on the next turn, he can simply attach to Ultra Necrozma and then play something like a Skateboard or Guzma and attack with that Photon Geyser. And thanks to the Beast Energy, it can also attack for 130 damage, so knocks out basically anything in a Malamar deck outside of the GXs.
Yeah, does it knock out the Registeel?
Just the Registeel, yeah.
The Registeel lives, yes, Registeel.
Everything in a typical Malamar
He knew
deck.
it. Joey knew it. All right, so Jirachi wakes up. That's very important.
Yes. And the original Jirachi from the EX Deoxys set, that was actually very important. I think Joey asking if he can play down Viridian Forest. The answer is no, you cannot play a stadium card of the same name.
We're already playing in Viridian Forest.
Yeah.
Oh, he's discarding the forest.
Okay. That is a legal play, yes. But yeah, the original one, you couldn't use the Poke Power if Jirachi was asleep.
Ah.
So waking up was actually a very, very big deal. But
this is a strict upgrade.
yeah. Although the original could look at the top 5 and pick any card, not just the trainer card. So
strict downgrade. Terrible. So here we go.
I still think this card's okay.
I think most of the field here agrees with you.
Yeah.
Ultra Balling away that Registeel. Sorry, the
What's he
Registeel
doing?
will not feature unless we see a Rescue Stretcher coming out to put that Pokemon into play. Brent's going to give it a read.
Yep.
Not a conventional sort of card you'll see, but you know, Joey's actually known for these sort of unconventional decks and unconventional deck lists, and they worked really well for him in the past. So you know, why change that strategy now?
Sure. It's a bit messy here, but we do see the Ultra Ball for Giratina and then another Ultra Ball discarding the Giratina plus another card. We do see Malamar come out. And we saw Joey go to discard his Dawnwings Necrozma GX, but actually pulled back. It's a little awkward because, I mean, you showed your opponent you had it, and then you took it back. You're like, oh, maybe I don't want to Ultra Ball that. So it'll always be in the back of Brent's mind that, oh, he does play that card, and it's not prized.
Yeah, it is a really quite important card in this matchup as well, because it can kind of swing the, you know, the tempo back into your favor. Now, you might think 180 damage doesn't actually knock out an Ultra Necrozma, but when you have access to that Distortion Door ability and you can put 1 damage counter on Ultra Necrozma and set it up for that knockout with 180 with the GX move, and also make yourself immune to sort of damage and effects the next turn, it's pretty strong.
Yeah, you can also use Beast Energy to get the extra 30 damage. It's weird to think about, but Dawnwings Necrozma GX is an Ultra Beast.
It is an Ultra Beast. And here we see a Mysterious Treasure. Probably wants to find a couple more Inkay. Probably start attacking this turn and try to be the first person to take the first prize.
It does get the second Malamar into play, so double Psychic Recharge is an option. We do see Giratina coming out with the Distortion Door. I'm not sure if there's actually enough Psychic Energy in his discard pile to pull off an attack this turn, though.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Ultra Balls, but not a lot of energy being sort of thrown away. Remembering with that Viridian Forest, you can always find energy whenever you need to, but you have to have those in the discard pile if you want a Psychic Recharge.
Looks like another Inkay comes down, and it would be nice for Joey to get an attack off here. He could take the first knockout, take the lead in this game, but looks like that's not going to be the case here. He's already used Stellar Wish with Jirachi, so that won't be an option anymore. Looks like just the 1 Psychic Energy, and that's going to be the end of his turn.
Always got to follow the rules, flip to see if you're awake. And so here we see Stellar Wish from Brent, and really it's just a case of just Stellar Wishing until you're ready to attack. I think that's really what it's come down to in this case. Brent having a look there.
It's funny because that sleep flip is extra irrelevant because like 99% of the time you just retreat with a skateboard anyway. It doesn't matter if it's asleep.
But Kyle, that 1% of the time that you need to retreat with the energy, it's super relevant. We see that Brent also plays Switch as well, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. I just think you could slap. I mean, can't do that when you're asleep.
Ah, you're right. Next level plays. Should be thinking ahead. So Brent here, probably going to try to get some Malamars into play. Maybe look for his own Giratina, or is he committed to using this Ultra Necrozma GX?
Looks like he is just going to go with Ultra Necrozma, saying, you know what, I don't care if it gives up 2 prize cards. I mean, if the opponent is committed to just using Giratina, it is still a 2-for-2 trade. You'll knock out 2 Giratina for your 1 Ultra Necrozma GX, so 2 prize cards apiece. So it's not the worst trade-off, and it does use very few resources early on in the game. You only have to discard 1 Psychic Energy, so it's easy to set up. It's not a bad route to go down.
And you have to sort of think about Giratina's attack as well, that Shadow Impact. It puts 4 damage counters on their side of the field, and that can kind of set up plays for yourself, actually, with the Sky Scorching Light later in the game. They're sort of putting damage counters down for you, so if they're putting enough down in the right places, you can take multiple prizes in 1 turn. So Giratina is sometimes not the most optimal attacker, but certainly it does seem like it in this case, just because you don't want to be giving up those 2 prizes.
So Joey here has some decisions to make. Looks like he's actually going to... he was going to discard his Lily with Viridian Forest, but decides to discard his Viridian Forest to Viridian Forest instead.
I think we've seen that play before.
Yeah. Both players, that's the only stadium card they're playing, so it's pretty much a worthless card once one of them is out there. You might as well discard them when you can.
Yeah.
Nobody plays Field Blower either, so once we're in Viridian Forest, we stay there.
It's kind of confusing because it's a field of squids, but sort of everything makes sense in Pokemon.
Yeah. We do have 3 Malamar in play now for Joey. He does have a switch in his hand, and he, of course, drew another Viridian Forest.
So what this means, having 3 Malamar in play, means that he can reliably just charge up a Giratina every single turn, as long as he can retreat the Pokemon that he sends into the active position. So all he needs is an escape board on that Inkay, and we can just continuously cycle Giratinas, but I think I didn't see any energy in his discard pile.
You are correct. He's got all the Malamar, but none of the energy in the discard pile. So he's already used Viridian Forest, so he cannot do it again and discard a Psychic Energy from his hand, so he just has to pass, and that's a big, big missed opportunity. Letting your opponent get up 2 prize cards before you even attack, that's a rough spot to be in. Yeah,
very awkward start, especially in this kind of matchup where we're expecting sort of 1 for 1 for 1 for 1 until someone can pull ahead, and this just might be Brent pulling ahead right here if Joey can't recover. Now, we do know he always has that Dawnwings Necrozma GX as an option, which can actually use Invasion, put itself into the active spot, make itself immune, and you have to be behind on prizes to be able to use that GX attack. Yeah. So that's always an option that Brent has to be aware of, and Joey, also has to be aware of and use at the right time. But if he doesn't have energy for it, makes it a little bit awkward.
Oops, looks like Brent is going to discard his own Viridian Forest to get a Psychic Energy, so that seems to be the only target so far for discarding a card with Viridian Forest. Just a single energy, Photon Geyser, knockout on a Malamar. And now Brent is down to 4 prize cards. And without any Psychic Energy in his discard pile, Joey is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and this sort of Malamar versus Malamar matchups, especially when it was the older variant with the Necrozma GX, it really was just a prize race, and who had the tempo is really what it came down to. And it kind of feels like Brent, even though it's only 2 prize cards, it's pulled quite far ahead in this matchup. Usually, when it's 1 prize either side, you're feeling okay. You can always come back from that. But when it's 2, it's quite awkward. Really, sort of, Joey's going to have to work hard to really bring himself back into this match, I'd say.
Sure seems like it. At some point, he's probably going to have to go with that Dawnwings Necrozma GX and try to make a comeback. But it's not looking good. Even if he can pull off an attack with Giratina here, it's a 2-hit knockout on this Ultra Necrozma GX, so it's just not a good spot to be in, and he lost one of his 3 Malamar.
It does have a Guzma, so he will be able to select a target on Brent's bench. You'd have to think...
It's got to be Malamar.
Yeah, with the energy.
There's some consideration for going for the one without the energy, because that's 1 less energy in your opponent's discard pile, 1 less to Psychic recharge with, but if we're at a point where Brent already has a bunch of energy in there, I guess you can take away the one that could potentially retreat later. And I've even seen Psychic Sphere used a couple times.
To effect?
Yeah, you knock out other Malamar.
Oh, excellent. That's the next level. Get rid of Giratina. Just go with Malamars. So Stellar Wish here is going to find Brent a mysterious treasure, and he's going to get rid of a Malamar. So that's very interesting. Hopefully he'll have rescue stretches to be able to get those back later in the game, because he is going to find an Inkay.
I mean, when you only have to discard 1 energy to Photon Geyser every turn, I guess you don't need many Malamar.
Yeah, I suspect Brent will, at some point, maybe have to knock out a GX, whether it's that Dawnwing's Necrozma GX or not. So it's still beneficial for him to have Pokemon on the bench that can load up that Ultra Necrozma GX when it has to be loaded up.
See Brent doubling down on the Ultra Necrozma GX here. Benching a second one, attaching a Metal Energy, and, you know, this is kind of smart because it does get around the Dawnwing's Necrozma GX knockout. The other one with the Beast Energy has the 10 damage already, so it's in range for that Moon's Eclipse GX, but now this fresh one will not be knocked out, even if Joey is able to power up that Dawnwing's Necrozma.
We'll have to see if Joey decides to continue with the Giratina route here, if he's able to sort of chain those and continuously knock out those Malamars and prevent Brent from ever getting energy onto his Necrozma. Because Malamar is the only way for the sort of Malamar, Psychic Recharge, sorry, but I guess it's irrelevant now.
Yeah, Joey looks at it and says, next game.
And so that's the power of Brent going just 2 prizes ahead. I know it sounds silly and it doesn't seem like that many, but just pulling ahead by 2 is sort of enough in this kind of matchup just to feel like, oh, I can't really come back from this.
Yeah, and that's great presence of mind from Joey. I mean, when you're playing a game, you always have the mindset of, I'm going to fight till the very end. I'm going to try to come back. I'm going to try to win. But when you're in a tournament setting, and especially in this specific situation where it's win or you're done, ties don't help you at all. Tie is effectively the same as a loss. You got to give yourself as much time as possible to actually win the match. And if you play another 5-10 minutes, you might rob yourself of an opportunity to win the match.
Yeah, knowing when to sort of move on is definitely an art form and something that the you know, more skilled players, typically you see them be a bit more aware of when to do that and when maybe to continue fighting. Brent here, Joey will be able to select whether he goes first or second. And you'd have to say in a matchup where you need to get Malamars out, you're probably going to opt to go first.
Yeah, I agree. If you're somewhat new to the Pokemon TCG, or even if you're experienced and you ever think, maybe I should go second, you should probably ignore that thought, because going first currently is the way to go.
I think there was a time when going second was okay. A couple of years ago.
Yeah, maybe.
There was an argument for it when Night March was a day. But certainly
even
not
then,
now.
I've seen that backfire many times.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'll go second, I'll get the first attack, and then you play your first turn, you're like, I pass.
I wish I'd had time to set up. Yeah.
Or your opponent go first and like play a Hex Maniac, and then you look at your hand and be like, oh, well, I'm not attacking, so I guess I should have gone first. Certainly
in this format as well, with Marshadow from Shining Legends running around, you definitely want to get as many things down as you can before your opponent potentially plays that to disrupt you. But 2 mulligans from Brent there is going to give Joey a few more resources to work with in his opening hand, maybe help him find a few more of the Inkays that he's looking for. Dittos perhaps as well.
Well, fun fact, neither player plays Let Loose Marshadow.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that. They know their hand is safe.
Yeah. All right, so both players setting up for game number 2. Brent finally found a basic Pokemon, so we can begin the game. You see that Beast Energy in his prize cards, which could be relevant, but otherwise nothing too big.
Yeah, especially that Inkay as well. I know it doesn't seem big, but having 1 Inkay prize when your opponent is wanting to target them down is pretty relevant. It could be impactful.
Certainly could be, yeah.
If Joey's able to, knock out 3 consecutively and Brent can't find that 4th one.
All right, but we have game number 2 beginning here from the final round here of day 1 of the Oceania International Championships between Brent and Joey. One of these players could move on with a victory, lock themselves in for day number 2 at this International Championships, the second one of the season. And it's a big one. There's a lot of prizes on the line, lots of prize money. You know, you get the title of International Champion, and you get a bunch of championship points, which can get you an invitation to the World Championships, as well as improve your standings to, be in the top 16 of your region, or top whatever it is of your region. It changes from region to region, but yeah.
I mean, I would even say that yes, they're well.
Doesn't
play
Marshadow.
Hands are not safe. They've got a judge instead.
We do have the original, the judge, coming in.
it's actually a really great start from Joey. So he was able to get an energy in the discard pile, an Inkay down. Hopefully he'll get an attachment to that Ultra Necrozma GX. And I mean, he also has the ability to Stellar Wish as well, which will find him another piece, which could just be like a Nest Ball or an Ultra Ball to find another Inkay. So it's a great start, and you know he's also hoping that he's completely disrupted Brent's hand. But I immediately see an Ultra Ball and a Viridian Forest in there, so that's something going on.
Yeah, it doesn't completely disrupt Brent. Like, he'll get to do things, but it certainly hurts. Like, even when you recover from a Judge or a Let Loose, having to do things like Ultra Ball for Tapu Lele GX to get a Lily really affects how the rest of the game plays out. So even though you don't lose the game immediately, long term, having that Tapu Lele GX on your bench can really affect how things go. We do see the Jirachi does wake up. We're going to be over to Brent's turn. He does seem to have a pretty decent hand for recovering. I mean, he is going to have to Ultra Ball for Tapu Lele, get the Lily, and go from there, but I've seen much worse.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very different start. This is a very different way than the first game went.
Yeah.
Just because both players are playing multiple GXs. Those Tapu Leles are certainly not safe when you have Ultra Necrozma GX hanging around, able to do so much damage. I mean, it's been these decks have really flourished because there are those tag team Pokemon that have 240 HP. Tapu Lele is nothing. It has 170 HP. Ultra Necrozma GX can deal with that.
Just has to discard 2 Psychic Energy and then boom,
easy.
180 damage.
Doesn't need 6.
Yeah, it's funny how much of a liability Tapu Lele GX has become. It used to be, you know, you have the 90 HP Jirachi EX for so long. That was an extreme liability, 2 prize card knockout, but you'd play it anyway because, I mean, it's great. It turns your Ultra Ball into a supporter card. And the damage output has increased so much on all these decks that now the 170 HP Tapu Lele is also not safe.
So Brent's got pretty good there. He's played the Ultra Ball to get a Tapu Lele and able to get a Lily off that. And that's just an ideal turn 1 supporter. It gets you 8 cards in your hand, and hopefully you're going to be able to find pieces that you need, such as those Inkays, or in this case, the Jirachi as well.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to grab Jirachi. It's a Pokemon you don't mind if it gets knocked out, and it can dig you into another Nest Ball, Mysterious Treasure, Ultra Ball, something like that, to get you another Inkay.
And I'd say that's certainly what Brent needs to find. If not an Ultra Necrozma with an energy attachment, he needs to find another Inkay to be able to, you know, start his attacking going next turn.
And he does find the Nest Ball, so can get a second Inkay onto the bench. It's a bit awkward. He had to use his energy attachment to retreat into Jirachi, so he's going to end his turn with 0 energy cards in play. And it's going to make it difficult for him to pull off an attack next turn, but it's still possible.
I mean, with Malamar, if you need energy, anything's possible. If he's able to get 2 Malamars down and use both Psychic Recharge abilities onto an Ultra Necrozma GX and a Metal Energy onto there, you know, that's, what, 180 damage?
Oh, yeah, that's all. That's all you need.
Yeah, I mean, it's no 200, but still pretty good. Joey on his side, he will only get up 1 Malamar this turn, but I think that's also enough. I mean, if he can just find a Metal Energy to attach to that Ultra Necrozma, he can knock out the Jirachi if he so chooses. Kind of wonder, though, if you'd want to leave the Ultra Necrozma in the active spot, though. So it's a bit of it's an awkward dance, this matchup, I think, because it really comes down to who can take 2 prizes when and who's going to take 1 prize when. And then, of course, you've always got the threat of Sky Scorching Light hanging over everybody, so...
Yeah, we do see Nest Ball for Ditto Prism Star. It's a card that's played in a lot of decks, usually Zoroark decks these days, because it's so flexible. It can evolve into so many different Stage 1 Pokemon. I mean, we saw the deck that John Eng was playing earlier where it could evolve into Zoroark GX, Lycanroc GX, Alolan Ninetales GX, Weavile, Alolan Muck. It could turn into any of those. But in this deck, it is simply a 5th Inkay. It can evolve into Malamar.
So you might wonder why he Nest Balled for Ditto when you could have Nest Balled for Inkay, which has 20 more hit points than Ditto. But actually, Inkay can just be searched with other cards like Mysterious Treasure, but Ditto can't. So it's a better Nest Ball target than an Inkay would be.
And you hope to evolve this Ditto immediately, whereas, you know, if things get very desperate, you could Hypnosis with an Inkay later on.
Inkay, it's a better Ditto. But we also see a Mimikyu on the side of Joey.
Oh, that's huge, yeah.
Which is really interesting as well. Mimikyu has that copycat attack that for 2 Psychic Energy can copy any attack on your opponent's side other than a GX move.
Yeah,
and it is
incredible against Ultra Necrozma GX. All you need is 2 Psychic Energy, and you can copycat Photon Geyser.
Yeah.
And you don't need the Metal Energy on there, so you just discard both. And I mean, I guess you do need a third one to get there, but just being able to like double Malamar, attach the Psychic Energy for the turn, you get to copycat the Photon Geyser for a knockout. And if you use Distortion Door with Giratina at any point, it's only 2 energy to do it. It's excellent. It trades for the 2 prize Ultra Necrozma GX using just this 170 HP innocent-looking Mimikyu.
One important difference between the 2 lists is actually that Brent does run damage modifiers in the form of Choice Band, so he has 2, and Joey doesn't run any. So that's really important in terms of how many energy each player can attach and what the numbers they can hit each turn. Brent just has that slight edge in that he can, I guess it's like, what, half an energy? A Choice Band is sort of like an extra half an energy that he can attach each turn and doesn't count as his energy attachment.
Yeah, it can make plays possible where they wouldn't be otherwise.
So just like that Mimikyu, let's say, what, 2 energy and a Choice Band is enough to knock out an Ultra Necrozma GX and only putting a single prize attacker in the active spot. So
that was not a good turn for Brent. Just attached energy to his Tapu Lele GX, used a Psychic Recharge onto Inkay, and that's pretty much it. And it looks like Joey's going to take full advantage with Guzma going after the 1 Malamar that Brent has right now. And if you're Brent here, this is looking pretty ugly, and we might see a similar situation to the first game where you look at it and go, yeah, let's play the next game.
Yeah, we'll have a 20-minute game 3. That'll be fine. But good sense of mind from Joey as well, not to just knock out the Tapu Lele GX. A lot of people will think, oh, I can just take 2 prizes off this Pokemon that's in the active position, and I don't really have to do anything. But Joey recognizes that he can take those 2 prizes anytime later in the game, but that Malamar is the thing that's really allowing Brent to potentially do something next turn. So knocking that out is pretty intelligent play from Joey on that side. But that's kind of what I expect from Joey. Only the best plays.
And now we have the second Malamar coming into play. So Joey has Energy Acceleration all ready to go. Gets the knockout with the Photon Geyser. He's got his Mimikyu powered up on the bench. So he is ready to go for just about anything Brent could throw at him. And Brent does not play the Dawnwings Necrozma GX, so he does not have that option of making the big comeback GX attack. That's really the main reason you play that card, but it has kind of fallen out of favor. It doesn't hit the same numbers as it used to. It's a very big liability against Zoroark decks. If you ever start with Dawnwings Necrozma GX and you play against a Zoroark deck, it feels terrible.
Just can't quite get there, even with the Beast Energy. You need a couple of different modifiers to be able to actually knock out a Zoroark GX.
Yeah, and it's weak to darkness, so they just ride us beating
They don't
knockout.
even need a Choice Band.
Yeah. All right, so can Brent pull off an attack this turn? He does play Cynthia. He has 2 Malamar in play. He's got an energy so he can retreat Tapu Lele GX, but he's still going to need some combination of like Ultra Necrozma GX plus Beast Energy or a Choice Band. And even if you do that, Mimikyu just comes out and uses Copycat. So there's not really a great option for you to take a knockout here without getting painfully return knockout by the Mimikyu.
But I feel like you have to, right? I mean, you can't just sit there and do nothing for the whole game.
Right.
So you kind of have to commit in that way, and you got to hope that, once I do deal with that Mimikyu afterwards, then hopefully Joey has nothing going on. But he's got a lot of things on board to work with. A couple of Malamar, Stellar Wish Jirachi.
Yeah, I mean, you could go for Giratina and try to get a 2-hit knockout, but that also doesn't seem great.
Yeah, it's definitely a very awkward situation. And I feel like Joey just pulled ahead really quickly as well. He was able to get things going, and Brent missed a couple of key turns of putting down Malamars and getting energy into play and finding Pokemon to attack with as well. I'd say, interestingly, also, just because he has no Jirachi available to him at the moment, and that seems to be actually problematic for him. I think people are relying a lot on Jirachi to find cards in their deck. And when they don't have that option, it's a bit difficult.
So we do see the Distortion Door from Giratina. Going to put damage counters. It looked like he pointed to both Malamar. No, looks like, both Malamar. So earlier in the day, it seemed like we were going to see this awesome Sky Scorching Light GX attack set up by Brent where he could take all 6 prize cards. And then later we realized that is impossible because You can't use Sky Scorching Light GX until the combined total of prize cards between both players is 6 or fewer. And if one player has not taken a prize card, that is impossible to reach.
Yeah, sadly. Sadly so.
So 6 prize knockouts, not particularly possible, but you can set up some big turns where you can wipe out multiple Malamar in the same turn. You can wipe out Jirachi and Mimikyu at the same time with Sky Scorching Light GX. But you do have to take a knockout somewhere along the way, otherwise you never get a chance to use it.
And part of that strategy is just reusing Giratina's Distortion Door ability over and over again. And so this is actually why Brent has put this Giratina into the active spot. Yeah, it didn't do any damage, but he's hoping it's going to get knocked out, and then he can use Distortion Door, put those 2 more damage counters down until those Malamars are 60 away from being knocked out. So it might seem a bit odd to put the Giratina in if it's not going to do anything, but it's sort of doing something and being put into the discard pile and being able to be used later.
Yeah, this is an awkward turn for Joey, though. He does not find a switch or anything like that to allow him to get his Ultra Necrozma GX to the bench. You can only Psychic Recharge to a benched Pokemon, so he just attached for the turn, and looks like he'll have to settle for the Photon Geyser for 100 damage, not getting a knockout. And every turn he's unable to find a knockout just means more time runs off the clock, makes it less likely that we have a winner in this match.
So interestingly, that 100 damage put onto Giratina, though, means that it can't put 40 damage on itself with Shadow Impact. It has to put it elsewhere, and there are no, to knock itself out. But there's not really a great target to put it elsewhere at the moment. If you put it 40 on Malamar, well, that's just setting up for a Sky Scorching Light knockout. 40 on Lele, well, that's just setting it up to be giving away 2 prizes much more easily. So, yeah, kind of awkward there.
Yeah, if you're Brent, I'm actually not sure what the game plan is. I mean, it seems so hard to find a path to come back here. You're not going to get a knockout on this Ultra Necrozma. Your opponent's going to be several prize cards ahead. I guess at some point you can pull off the Sky Scorching Light, but it just feels like it's going to be too late.
Yeah, I wonder if he wants to try to KO the Mimikyu first. I don't know. It's just awkward all around.
Indeed. He can Shadow Impact this turn, hit for 130 damage, at least set up this Ultra Necrozma to be knocked out on a following turn or by
Sky Scorching Light. Yeah. That's his go-to play, I think. But like you stated, you need to take a prize card somewhere to be able to use that attack.
Gotta do something.
And then, again, where do you put the 4 damage counters? But it looks like he's probably going to go for it.
Yeah, I think you just put it on top of Lele GX.
Yeah, you expect it to be knocked out anyway.
Probably, yeah. Because, putting it on Malamar seems like a disaster waiting to happen if your opponent is able to use that GX attack later on in the game. At least this forces your opponent to have Guzma.
So I see a committed attachment to the Ultra Necrozma GX and then a Shuffle Draw Supporter. Looks like what it's going to be. That Ultra Necrozma GX will get a knockout in the Giratina if it does attack with Photon Geyser.
Yeah, I can see maybe one chance for Brent to win. If he can take down this Ultra Necrozma GX, then at some point, if he can get enough Giratina out, I mean, he can put 2 more damage counters on both those Malamar and then 1 damage counter each on Jirachi and Mimikyu. Then you can set up for the big 5 prize Sky Scorching Light, or 4 prize, and close out the game that way. The problem is, I don't know if he has enough Giratina to actually pull that off.
Yeah, I think the problem is also Joey playing Escape Rope and not actually knocking out Giratina, which means that Brent can't be using Distortion Door if it's done in the discard pile. Really limits his option. He's decided to promote the Malamar, deciding that that's, I'm okay with this being knocked out, versus a Tapu Lele, which will give up 2 prizes.
Yep, so we see Stellar Wish, Jirachi finding that Lily, and he'll be able to retreat thanks to the escape board. And I guess we'll have to find out which Pokemon he wants to attack with here. He could Copycat, since Giratina did use Shadow Impact in the last turn, so he could do 130 damage with Mimikyu's Copycat, and looks like that's what's going to happen. You see the 70 HP Pokemon come in and knock out Malamar with a pretty big attack thanks to weakness.
Yeah, it's a really interesting choice because it does put 4 damage counters on some of his Pokemon.
Yeah.
Which actually sets up that Malamar for the Sky Scorching Light. We've been harping on about it. I just want to see it. I just want to see it now. I mean, come on. But Brent also does play 2 Giratina, so there is also one still available that he can discard and reuse. He can put 10 damage on the Jirachi, and that sets it up for a Sky Scorching Light at knockout as well. So it seems kind of hopeless, but it also seems like there are actually still options available to Brent that, you know, slim chances, but
yeah,
they are there.
This turn, Brent actually needs to do something like Guzma out the Malamar with 1 damage counter on it, just so we can take a prize card and give him a chance to pull off the big Sky Scorching Light GX. You need to take a knockout somewhere, but the problem is you don't want to knock out Mimikyu because that's one of your easy targets for the Distortion Door, putting the damage counter on and then putting 6 more with Ultra Necrozma later.
Exactly.
It's really tough because if your opponent knows what you're up to, they can do things like, oh, I'll play Escape Rope and force you to bring out something else so I don't put your Giratina back in the discard pile, or Guzma, knock out something else. Just seems so unlikely for Brent to win at this point. It is possible, but it's got to be like less than 10%, and it just, is that worth playing for at this point?
You're playing for a spot in day 2 potentially. Did that come from the discard pile?
Yeah, he had just Ultra Balled that away, or
10
Viridian Forest.
Oh, yeah.
It looks, oh, okay, this works.
This is it.
Yeah, he can go after Tapu Lele GX.
This is actually amazing.
Yeah.
So he'll be able to knock out the Tapu Lele GX. He will put 4 damage counters on his own side of the board. So we also have to remember that Sky Scorching Light GX is available to Joey as well for his GX move, as he hasn't used his Dawn Wings Necrozma GX.
And you see the Choice Band coming into play there. Adding 30 damage to the Giratina's attack. That's an option Joey would not have. And now Brent is able to give himself a chance in the game. There's now
if Joey takes a prize, there are actually 4 prizes available to Brent on Joey's side of the field. So,
yeah, what do you even do if you're Joey now?
Yeah, you can't just not take a prize.
Yeah, I mean, do you try to set up for the Sky Scorching Light on your own side?
Taking out the Malamar does mean that
yeah.
you can't get a Sky Scorching Light on Brent's side, because he obviously can't attach 2 energy in 1 turn if he doesn't have access to Psychic Recharge. So that's one avenue of play.
Very true.
But it sort of feels like only a matter of time until Brent can just get those 2 energy on. In fact, 2 turns if the Malamar's knocked out.
Yeah, although, I mean, if you can Guzma this turn and Guzma the next turn, you'll knock out the Malamar, go down to 2 prize cards, Guzma Tapu Lele GX, and take the win that way. So I think Joey's identified that's got to be the way he dances around this Ultra Necrozma GX attack.
So you said 10% chance that Brent wins. Have we changed it? Is it higher?
Yeah, it's a little higher now.
Okay.
Although with Jirachi and, well, he's already used his Tapu Lele GX. Not sure if he has Rescue Stretcher. He does. Seems like he'll have access to Guzma at some point. I don't think he's played very many of them yet. And he's only playing 3 Guzma, though.
Interesting.
So not guaranteed that he'll get it.
Yeah, it's kind of, sometimes people cut a Guzma from their list in favor of something like an Escape Rope because they think it has the same effect, but they can draw into it and still play it if they've played a supporter.
Yeah,
so I wonder if that's what's happened here. Yeah. So we see it's taking a Lily. I almost got excited that he was playing a Lily then, but
yeah, he's already got Guzma in hand. This is going to be a tight finish to the second game here. Now, we've been waiting to see the Sky Scorching Light GX all day. We might finally get a chance to see it.
But we also might not.
Yeah.
The chances are all the same.
Yeah. And then another problem is there's the first Guzma. Now Brent effectively cannot bench another Inkay because then Sky Scorching Light would be a 2-prize swing for Joey. So, I mean, next turn he's basically got to put down an Ultra Necrozma, attach an energy, and fingers crossed.
Yeah. He's got to hope there's no other Guzma. But, I mean, Joey has access to, 2 Jirachis as well to be able to try to find that Guzma?
Yeah. So there is the Copycat using Giratina's Shadow Impact, getting the knockout on that Malamar, taking away the option for Brent to power up his Ultra Necrozma GX this turn. If he were able to do something like, if he played a random energy switch in his deck or something, he could potentially win this turn, but otherwise he's got to just set up for the 2-turn win.
I may or may not have just double-checked the deck list just to make sure there was no energy switch there. But really clever play from Joey, seeing that this is, the way that I lose is by not doing this. So, of course, I have to do this. I have to Guzma the Malamar. And there comes a Cynthia from Brent. His deck is looking very small. very few cards left there. Not sure if he has all the resources he needs to be able to pull this back.
I guess we'll find out. If you're Brent here, I think, I mean, you're certainly searching for Ultra Necrozma GX. You got to play that down, attach an energy to it. If you don't find it here, you've basically lost the game. But he does find Ultra Necrozma GX. I think it's somewhat important to not knock out this Mimikyu here. It would allow Joey to send out Jirachi and get multiple Stellar Wishes off and dig deeper for the game-winning Guzma. So I think if you're Brent here, you can simply retreat to one of your Giratina and pass the turn and hope you get that final turn to pull off that big GX attack.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, it looks like he's going to attack there.
Okay, he
takes out the Mimikyu to put himself down to 3 prizes.
All right, now Joey's going to get 2 different Stellar Wish abilities to find the game-winning Guzma. He can go after the Tapu Lele GX on the bench or even the Ultra Necrozma at this point. Does he find the game-winning Guzma to tie up this series and force a game 3?
Oh, my heart is like pounding. I got to see how this goes. I mean, these are both players from Oceania, so I have a lot invested in both of them doing well, but looks like we've got a rescue stretcher.
Oh, he looked through his deck. He found Guzma in there, so he can rescue stretcher for Tapu Lele GX. Guzma out one of those Pokemon GX and Photon Geyser for the win.
Yeah, wow.
And we're going to go to a game 3.
And not much time left, only 10 minutes. So that's a little bit awkward for both players. He didn't attack with Sky Scorching Light, so, you know, I can dream. There's always tomorrow, right?
The darkest timeline. We might have a tie, and we didn't see Sky Scorching Light GX.
Yeah, as we discussed earlier, this is really a win or out kind of situation for these players. I mean, there are prizes awarded to the players who make it to the top 64, and you know, obviously 32 of those players don't progress to day 2, but all players want another chance to keep playing and just play in those 5 rounds tomorrow, and then hopefully in the top 8, top 4, and the final. But a tie here will actually effectively rule out these players from being able to do that. They do have to win. You know, one of them has to win in 8 minutes and 30 seconds, which is quite difficult, but it can be done. You know, if your opponent doesn't draw the best cards, especially if you're disrupting them with something like Marshadow GX. Yeah.
It's like, can we just both agree to play with Pokemon GX this game as we finish?
So we can take a quick 6 prizes.
All right. Handshake and game number 3 underway of our final Swiss round here from the first day of the Oceania International Championships. Brent starting off with that Jirachi and is able to Stellar Wish into the Cynthia.
Oh, which is very fortunate because he had no other supporters.
Oh, yeah,
draw supporters, that is.
Discards Giratina, and it looks like Choice Band as well. So he's off to a pretty solid start.
Yeah, getting rid of that Giratina into the discard pile as well is really fortunate because it means he can use that Distortion Door. I mean, you know, sometimes the one damage counter on 2 Pokemon isn't so relevant, but it's always nice to be able to use it just in case. And as we saw later, you know, when you have Sky Scorching Light as an option, yeah, it's always nice to be able to use.
And this is where Brent might regret not playing that Marshadow in his deck with Let Loose. This is the kind of situation where you would love to just slam down Marshadow and be like, look, all you have is Inkay. And if you don't draw anything else,
you draw nothing. Yeah.
That's one way to win a game in less than 10 minutes.
I mean, that's my strategy in all matchups. Just try to disrupt my opponent and recognize that they're probably better than I am. So here we go, Cynthia, 6 cards. I mean, what else could you ask for from this start? Maybe an energy attachment to an Ultra Necrozma. I think having 3 Inkays is pretty optimal. Maybe finding an escape board. You know, your opponent doesn't play Field Blower, so it's not really a risk to play that down onto Jirachi.
It's like he does have Mysterious Treasure plus Psychic Energy in hand, so he could find Ultra Necrozma, attach an energy. Could also just discard the Psychic Energy. Looks like just going to pass, though. Going to hold on to his hand.
Maybe recognizing that he might want to find a Malamar, or maybe he doesn't know that his opponent doesn't play Marshadow.
Yeah, although he did see Judge in the last game.
But if your opponent's playing Judge on turn 1, you know, they've got bigger issues going on, I think.
Sure. So Ultra Ball from Joey does get a Psychic Energy in the discard pile along with that Dawnwings Necrozma GX. And he'll probably find himself, looks like Jirachi, so he can start setting up. Both these players are probably going to have to pick up the pace a little bit. We're going to need to see some quick turns, some quick knockouts if they want any hopes of finishing the match. And Joey is playing that escape rope. It's helping out quite a bit to get that Jirachi in the active spot and a big turn 1 Lily for 6 cards.
Not seeing another Inkay.
Hasn't even used Stellar Wish yet.
They could get the Nest Ball or an Ultra Ball. But still, I'm only seeing 1 Inkay, and there's a Mysterious Treasure. Excellent.
That'll do it.
Otherwise, Brent could have just targeted down that Inkay and possibly run away with the game.
Yeah, definitely. He's going to discard Giratina with Mysterious Treasure. Usually an easy discard since you can always get it back.
That or Viridian Forest, apparently.
Yeah.
So there we go, second Inkay. And this is really the optimal starts from both players. This is how the Malamar decks are typically run, whether it's the version with Necrozma GX or the version with, you know, sometimes with spread kind of cards like Tapu Koko, or with the Ultra Necrozma GX. You know, your turn 1 is always, let's just find as many Inkay as we can so we can, you know, Psychic Recharge as much as we can on turn 2.
So we do see Joey being a bit more aggressive, using that Giratina Distortion Door immediately so he can put an energy on it and try to attack. I think he recognizes, I can't afford to miss an attack on my second turn.
It's not something I'm used to seeing, a metal energy on a Giratina, but you know, you have to change your game plan a little bit sometimes and just, you know, take the knockouts that you can, especially when you're in these positions when there's less than 5 minutes remaining in the match that is going to decide whether you make it to the second day of an international championships or not.
Yeah, great second turn here from Brent so far. Plays an Ultra Ball and a Mysterious Treasure, is able to discard multiple Psychic Energy, get 2 Malamar out, and if things go correctly, he should be able to pull off an attack this turn.
Yeah, he does still need a few pieces though, such as an attacker and also energy in the discard pile. I don't think there are too many. There might be 1.
I think it's either 1 or 2.
Yeah. Well, there's a Nest Ball and there's a Beast Energy, so that's certainly one way to get there, but is there a way to retreat the Inkay from the active position?
Right, that's the question.
Oh, there's a switch, sort of mocking Brent at the bottom.
Yeah, Skateboard would do it, Switch would do it. Can he find any of those, though? Looks like just the Nest Ball for Ultra Necrozma. He does have the Beast Energy in hand, and there's the Skateboard. Okay,
nice.
So gonna get a turn 2 knockout with this Ultra Necrozma GX. It's exactly what he needed. Also gets Giratina back.
And that's one way to apply pressure in this match where you just have to take 6 quick knockouts. And there's 1. Can he take 5 more is the question. I mean, it's not unrealistic, I don't think, in this sort of Malamar deck set up to just continuously recycle attackers and just take prizes quite quickly. You know, ordinarily you can put 1 energy on per turn, but when you have Psychic Recharge.
Oh, Mimikyu coming in for Joey. If he's able to get
very big.
Yeah, if he's able to get double Malamar, he'll still need a switch, which he does not play. Oh, he does play 1 switch. He'll be able to power up Copycat for the knockout on the Ultra Necrozma, copying its Photon Geyser attack.
Yeah, with no Jirachi Stellar Wish ability though, and playing a Cynthia, it's looking like he's going to have to draw very optimally to get that.
If there were any time to do it, it would be right now.
Yes.
So 6 important cards for Joey. Does find a Malamar. If he can find a switch to go with it.
A lot of good things, but I don't think the things that he needed that turn.
Not quite there. Does find Viridian Forest. He could have gotten a Psychic Energy with that, but looks like he's going to fall just a little bit short. And now comes the question of how do you approach this turn? Is this time for the Desperation Hypnosis?
I wouldn't be disappointed.
I mean, it might be what he has to do. Got to think if Brent goes ahead 2 prizes, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. There's the Psychic Energy. Or is it going to go Ellis? Or is he going to attach it?
Look, I know you're rooting for Hypnosis, but I'm... Actually, you never know right now.
All right. The moment of truth. Where does the Psychic Energy go?
This is a bizarrely relevant decision.
Does it go on the Mimikyu?
This shouldn't be as exciting as it is. There we go.
Oh,
okay.
Come on.
Ends up on the Mimikyu.
No, not yet. He's still got his hand on it. Oh, takes it back.
Because we have time for this in this matchup with 1 minute and 10 seconds left.
He's got to analyze all the options. Oh, no. One more check. Where will the psychic energy end up? Nobody knows.
It's like a whodunit.
Oh,
Okay.
it's going to the Inkate. Here we go. Oh, it's almost there.
Oh, the suspense is killing me, honestly.
Oh, he did it.
It's left.
All right, here we go.
Hypnosis.
All right, this is a big flip, and it is. Oh,
never mind. Stays awake.
So much for that. We see Brent discarding the nest ball to the Viridian Forest, finding a psychic energy, and his turn's probably going to be a bit shorter.
I do think so. No deliberating over energies.
Yep,
there we go. Takes a prize very quickly.
Attachment, psychic recharge, knockout. Please, please give me more turns so I can win this game.
Yeah, like we said, the players aren't really privy to what the clock situation is and how much time is left. But as you said, I think, who knows, yesterday, today, I don't know what time it is anymore. But you did say that, you know, players typically have this internal body clock. They know how long the games have been going for. They know that this is very near the end of the round. And that, you know, things need to happen.
Yeah, speaking of that, the clock has hit all zeros, and that means we are out of time in this round. We will have 3 additional turns to decide a winner if possible. Looks like Joey will be turn 0, then his opponent will get turns 1 and 3. And we're just going to see the Copycat using Photon Geyser for 180 damage, which is a bit short, but can set up, you know, things like Distortion Door and Sky Scorching Light. We only got 120 damage on there. It should be much more than that.
Yeah. 160, 180? Yeah, for sure.
Oh, he actually plays Acerola.
Ah, so it didn't matter.
Picks up his Ultra Necrozma GX. Wow. Most Malamar decks are not playing Acerola.
Yeah, people typically don't have time, sort of the space to fit that card for one, but also typically wouldn't decide to play it because they just think that they're just going to be trading 2 prizes with their opponent, dealing lots of damage, expecting lots of mirror matches. There's a knockout.
There's the Shadow Impact for the knockout. Going down to 3 prize cards.
The speed with which Brent was playing then makes me think that perhaps, not sure if time was...
maybe our timer is not accurate.
They might have had a time extension. Oh, it looks like Joey's realizing that no one can resolve the game.
He's going to double Psychic Recharge to the Malamar. And yeah, I believe time has been called at this point. You can see Joey say, okay, this doesn't matter, I pass.
Yeah. And I do think that a tie here, though, means that both players are probably locked in for the top 64, so they still will walk away from this match with championship points and hopefully some prizes, but of course there will be that disappointment of not making to the second day, to day 32. Sorry, day 2, the top 32.
Is that what it feels like, day 32?
Yeah, it feels like day 32. I can't even complain. I don't have this jet lag, but it's
still a long day.
Yeah. But credit to both players, though. They got to the point where they could have made it to the second day, which is, you know, a lot better than most of the players in this tournament. They put themselves in that position, and they played pretty well. It's pretty hard to play an Ultra Necrozma GX Malamar sort of mirror match. It does take a lot of skill. You do have to play around those different factors like the Sky Scorching Light, Distortion Door, decide whether you're going to attack with Giratina, select what you're getting with Mysterious Treasure. Like, there's a lot of different parts, a lot of different moving parts.
I mean, you gotta think back to, there was a point in the middle of the second game where we're like, can he actually win? Maybe he should just concede, and if he had 5 extra minutes, maybe we would see Brent advancing to day 2. It's always hard to tell, especially in the moment, but those are things you always got to be aware of.
Well, we also could have seen a Sky Scorching Light for 4 prizes, so you never know.
Could have, yes.
You never know what timeline it was diverting to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess hopefully we'll find out who the players are that are moving on to the top 32, who are going to be playing tomorrow in those extra 5 rounds. Yeah, I'll be really interested to see if any of those sort of players that we saw on stream earlier were able to progress. Any that maybe lost earlier on in the tournament and unfortunately had to try to fight their way up through a X&1 or X&2 record and make their way in. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Unfortunately, 2 Malamar decks just eliminated each other, essentially. That's 2 fewer non-electro power decks for day 2.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what we're going to see tomorrow, isn't it? A lot of lightning decks, whether that be the Jolteon Jirachi variant, Zapdos Jirachi variant, or the Pikachu Zekrom tag team. Maybe a bit of Zoroark, I'd say, and obviously Zach's Blacephalon GX deck that he alone is piloting. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see the list and see who's made it and what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, we started off the day thinking that Pikachu and Zekrom was kind of the deck to beat. It looked so powerful, but as the day went on and more rounds happened, it certainly seemed like the Pikachu and Zekrom variants fell to the wayside, and just the straight Zapdos, Jirachi decks were picking up the slack. We've seen a lot of players advance to day 2 with that deck already. We saw Azul in an earlier round. He was able to clean up another game, and he's advanced to the top 32 tomorrow, or however many players there are, day 2 tomorrow. Yeah, and Azul said it on stage when I got to talk to him. He said it's basically the tag team deck, but it beats the Pikachu and Zekrom tag team deck. Why wouldn't I play this deck that has essentially the same matchups, but beats that version of the deck?
Yeah, he seemed pretty adamant about that it was a very, very like fast version of that sort of deck. Yeah, tomorrow we have 5 rounds of Pokemon action, some of the best players from around the world competing for all those prizes. Yep. If you want to sort of check in with us, you can find us on pretty much all social media platforms with that /Pokemon URL. And also if you want to sort of get engaged in the conversation or sort of keep up to date with what's happening at the tournament, or what the players are up to and how players are doing, just use that #PlayPokemon. Yeah, get involved in the conversation, because that's what it's all about. It's all about the Pokemon community. Yeah. And I guess, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. What time do we kick off tomorrow?
I believe it is 9:30 a.m.
Yeah.
That's when our first match will happen.
Yeah, bright and early. I'm sure everyone with that jet lag that we were talking about is pretty keen for that. But
and remember, we're in Australia, so adjust for your time zone accordingly wherever you are. It might be it might be Thursday where you are right now.
I don't think the world's that far behind, right? I know we're living in the future, but yeah. So we'll see you tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Make sure you get online, start watching, and yeah, that's all from us, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.
And thanks for watching, folks, and we will see you in the morning for more Pokemon TCG action. You don't want to miss it.
休息了，感谢大家。